stepped out. I'm looking up at this thing, and then I'm in this extremely brilliant white light, and it's the only thing I can see. It didn't hurt. Like, you know, when you see stuff, lights flash in your eyes, and you get that intensity, and you want to block or squint, or you can't look at it. I didn't feel anything like that, but it was so brilliant. And it didn't seem like I was there very long.
Welcome back to In Conversation With on Breaking the Silence, and you know who I am. And I today have Teri Groves on as our guest. Teri and I have never met before until now, and I've known about her because she headed up a group. There was a former group called UPARS, and it went under, and she picked it up and called it I.S.E.E.U. And also being a member of Vaughn's support group and her CIRO since 1994, which gives away my age. I've been aware of her as a result of that too, because she's a member of Vaughn's support group. And welcome to In Conversation With. It's great to have you here.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, also a part of MUFON too.
You're part of MUFON as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had a lot of MUFON people uh, coming on our show recently because of Earl Grey Anderson, predominantly hooking us up with them and kind of changing the narrative about MUFON being all about nuts and bolts, and they don't care about people who see little green men. That has, as of late, been changed, and I know this from talking to, of course, Earl and a number of other people, Dustin Eccleston, and of course George. I just edited his show and finished it today and uploaded it for Dr. George Medic. Um, MUFON is now has the experiencers resource team, and they are very vested in helping people with these experiences and also investigating them and pointing them in the right direction for help. So if you thought MUFON was an organization that was not on the side of people who have actually been in the craft and seen the beings, you need to change that way of thinking, because that's really changed. Is that not correct?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And we had Earl on ICU also. He came and
right,
spoke.
right. So, Teri, how did this all begin for you? Can we start at the beginning and get sort of a narrative from you about how you got interested in this, and if you will talk about experiences, can you elaborate on those a bit?
Yeah, I mean, when I was probably 13, somewhere around there, I was in my um, in the downstairs, kind of in the den area, and I used to sit up and watch Benny Hill and Monty Python, and my parents would be already in bed, and,
Good taste.
and I had a routine where I would go turn on a light and then turn off a light, and then I'd go to the next room so I wouldn't like stumble over things and be in the dark. And one evening, I turned off the TV, I turned on the hall light, I went and turned off the den light, and I heard all this noise in the kitchen, and I was like, Mom? And I started yelling louder and louder. And I thought, okay, she would have heard me by now. And then I started yelling, Dad, and nothing. Then I was frozen. I couldn't move. I couldn't go back to the den. I couldn't move. And I was terrified thinking that there were burglars or something that were in the kitchen. And I thought, I'm going to walk in there and I'm going to see these guys with masks on, that are ransacking the kitchen. And I thought, do I run outside? Well, if I run outside, I'm going to get in trouble because the streetlights are on. Do I run upstairs and see my parents are dead and I'll be trapped? And so I just kind of froze. Finally, I decided, okay, I'm just going to go upstairs. So as I ran by the kitchen, I grabbed the end of the banister and I turned around as I was starting to go up the stairs and looked back. And there was this little creature that was standing there. And the streetlights from outside kind of like glowed on him, glowed on his eyes and stuff. And I was like, what the hell are you? As I ran up the stairs, and I thought, oh my God, that's a demon. What is that? And when I got
Hmm.
upstairs, all of a sudden my dad is standing there. And I was like, you know, you didn't hear me yelling before? I said, what are you doing? And he says, I need a glass of water. Just very monotone, strange. And I go, but you can't go. And before I could finish saying you can't go downstairs, my mom's standing there. And I was like, didn't you hear me? And she goes, go to bed. And I was just, I didn't even know what to do. And I turned back around. My dad already has a glass of water in his hands. And I'm like, how did you get that so fast? So I went to bed, obviously didn't sleep, had the covers pulled over my head the whole night thinking that the demons were here. And many years later, a friend of mine, her son had some experiences and stuff, and we were talking, and he said, "Well, first of all, those weren't your parents; those were shapeshifters because they knew you were afraid." And I was like, "Oh, okay, that makes more sense."
Hmm.
And later on in life, before he said that, I realized that was a gray. That was and he was just kind of like looking at me, not like scary or anything, just kind of looking at me and watched me as I went up the stairs, and that was it. That was one of my first experiences. Shortly, right after that, I came up with this language that I fluently wrote, and I started in school with giving it as I'd give them the code, of what each meant, each symbol meant, and that's how we would pass notes. Um, I was looking through one of those books. A friend of mine and I were talking about different oddities on our bodies and things, and she was talking about seeing a UFO. And so I pulled out one of these books, and they were the Time Life books where you get stuck in buying the next one, and each one's like $10, and next thing you know, you've got $1,000 worth of books that you're never going to look at.
I
Pulled
remember
out the
those.
one
Yes.
that was UFOs, and we started thumbing through it to see if there was a picture of what she'd seen. And all of a sudden, I saw this writing. I'm like, "Oh, infirmary." And she went back to the page. She goes, "Wait, what?" She goes, that's not English. And I go, "Oh my God, that's my writing." I just got the chills. and
Oh,
I looked under what it said, and it was from Antoine Villaboa. I'm probably saying his name wrong, but
no,
he's
you're close.
from Brazil.
I can't pronounce it either. Yes, I'm familiar with him. Yes.
Abductee from Brazil, and
Hmm.
he had said that that's what he saw above the visitors' spacecraft's door to one of the rooms. And I knew that it said infirmary, basically, the sick ward or the medical ward or whatever, something to that effect. And then I started getting interested, and I'm like, why do I know this writing? Why does somebody clear across the world have the same writing? And I started looking into things, and one day I'm a makeup artist, and one day I was on set, and this woman just that owned the ranch. We were shooting at this huge ranch out in the middle of I don't know where, and she came up to me and she's like, um, "Do owls follow you?" And I'm like,
Oh boy.
"Well, there's
Mhm.
owls in every tree at every place I've ever been in, and yeah, I mean they're always around." She's like, "How do you feel about clowns?" I said, "Well,
Oh,
I love clowns." you know, I mean,
I'm glad you do.
And then she started asking me a bunch of questions, and do you ever smell mildew that you can't figure out where it's coming from? Do you ever have a metallic or blood taste in your mouth? I mean, just a lot of different things. And I was like, okay, so what is all this? And she said, if I invited you to dinner tomorrow night, would you come up and meet a couple of my friends? And I'm like, sure, whatever. As I'm driving there, I'm thinking, okay, this is really dumb. I'm going out in the middle of nowhere, meeting people I don't know. It's dark, and this is the setup for a scary movie. And but I get there, and it is Roger Lear and Daryl Sims, and
Oh boy.
they started doing a lot of experiments on me. They had a huge questionnaire. Roger took me over to his office. They did a lot of X-rays and X-rayed my head, and I said, "Is it hollow?" And so from there, Roger invited me to come and meet and come to a MUFON meeting and meet Lloyd Pye, and wanted me to hold the Star Child skull. And I said, "Yeah, I mean, that sounds cool." So I started going to, I went there, and they had me hold it to see what kind of intuitive feelings and readings that I got off of it. And I said, there's something on this that is preventing me to be able to get any kind of reading. I don't know what it is. And Lloyd said, "Oh, I put a protective coating on the bone so that it would just be." I don't know what it was that he put, but anyways, there was no feeling, no reading. So that was interesting. So I started going to the MUFON meetings. That was out in Thousand Oaks
Yeah, Newberry Park, correct?
Park. Yeah,
I was at those quite often because Roger and I were very close. We
yeah,
were good friends.
yeah. He invited me to a lot of things, and then somehow, I don't know how, but I got invited to come to some meeting at a restaurant, and I don't know how I ended up there, but I went by myself, and I wasn't going to meet anybody, and I have no idea how I got invited, but it ended up being Yvonne Smith's Zero Group. And when I walked in the door and I sat down at the table, about four of them looked at me and said, "You're a hybrid." And I'm like, "Oh, cool. Are we all hybrids here?" Very
Mhm.
skeptical and everything. And so
Sure.
that was interesting. I also,
What year was that,
um,
if I may ask?
probably, I'm assuming maybe in the 90s.
Yeah,
Um,
that was a busy time.
and then Barbara Lamb tried to hypnotize me. Yvonne tried to hypnotize me, and they also had some guy try to hypnotize me. And very bummed, but nobody was able to hypnotize me. I think Barbara tried twice, Yvonne tried twice, and then one guy tried once, on all different occasions. And they all say that there's some kind of a black veil that's hiding information that they don't want anybody to know, or something to that effect. So I don't know, but
Huh.
I was hoping that I would even be able to be. I also went to another guy that was supposed to do past life regression, and he wasn't able to hypnotize me either. So
Well, some people can't be, uh, for whatever reason, they can't be hypnotized. I've run into this a lot over the years, over the last 40 years, and
yeah, it's a bummer because I would love to do a past life regression for sure, and then also do something to figure out how I came up with that language. Um, but
do you still have, if you kept records of your drawings of those symbols?
I mean, it's a whole alphabet basically.
Right. Well, I think I might recognize them. I was just curious because,
Yeah, I mean, I have it written somewhere. I can text you.
sure,
Text you.
that'd be great. I can put them up while we're talking here. So,
Oh, cool.
yeah.
And so that's how I got. So then somehow from the MUFON, I started going over to the Beverly Garland area for the MUFON LA,
Hmm.
and ended up, and then we would hang out afterwards at the little restaurant there. There was a woman that I knew, Sandra Marsh. She used to do sky searching. She'd lead like these things. They go out, and that was interesting. I know I'd love to figure out where she is or whatever happened to her. She was so nice. Um, and so I got involved with that. Then somehow Steve became involved with MUFON. Um, and I don't remember who was the head of MUFON LA before that, but then it changed to the Brown Church. So when I was trying to find MUFON again, it was no longer at the Beverly Garland. So then I found it again because I hadn't been in a long time. Went over to the Brown Church and met Steve and started hanging out, and that was still MUFON LA. Started hanging out
Hmm.
there, helped him with a lot of things, started running the door, and then they MUFON and Steve separated ways, and Nikki, somebody who was a member, and I and Wolf and a whole bunch of different people all went over to a restaurant. We went over to Dupar's, and Nikki and I were trying to talk Steve into continuing on, but let's just change the name. And so we were all brainstorming and trying to figure out a new name. And I said, well, we need to have paranormal also in with this. Let's figure something out. So we came up with UPARS, and which was funny because it was Dupar's UPARS. We were sitting at Dupar's, and so
That
then
was a nice group.
yeah, and
It
then
was.
we we had that, and then I broke away because of other reasons, and had nothing more to do with UPARS for quite some time, and then I just got busy, with makeup and on set and things, and then I one day I saw there was so many different people that were administration people on UPARS that I didn't know who they were. I didn't think Steve knew who they were. Steve wasn't on it. No, nobody. I only recognized one name, and so I went on there and I'm like, "Who are you? And how did you get on as admin?" And these people were just nobody like that wasn't even involved with it. They didn't even know how they got on it. There was so much spam, lots of just stuff on it. So I went in and cleaned it up and cleared it out, um, and then we had to change the name, and so we changed it to I.C.E.U.
Yeah, which is I period S period E period E period U period, correct?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
investigate, study, examine, and educate, or educate and examine the unknown.
Right. And you, of course, made the connection, as many are starting to do these days, that um, uh, encounters with non-human intelligence are not separate from paranormal experiences. It's not separate from near-death experiences. It's not separate from uh, ghosts, for lack of a better description, and a lot of other events. They're all very much connected, and they're all very much share
Yeah,
the same space. And I know a lot of people are digging their heels in about that, but I've been doing this stuff since I was 6 years old. And I had my first real conscious memory, and I can tell you, after over 60 years or more, they're definitely connected. There's no question about it.
oh
And
yeah,
I'm really glad to see that you have made that connection and the people that you're working with. So
yeah, yeah. And then I also had a couple other experiences, but um, and it's funny because all my friends and a lot of my coworkers are just like, "Oh yeah, it's the alien girl."
yeah, well, I experienced that. I mean, my background. I mean, I started working with Rick Baker, John Chambers. I was friends with Dick Smith, a lot of the greats
Yeah,
way back
yeah,
when. And when I had started doing that, all at that point I knew was that I was always seeing UFOs, and they were close up and personal, and people were seeing them with me. I had witnesses, but I didn't make the connection until Whitley's book came out. Really, that there was more to it than that. After that period, and then I came public in the 90s, which was the hotbed for this stuff. I mean, this is when all the great people are around, Roger Lear, and I mean, some of them are still with us, but a lot of them are not, and a lot of them, if they haven't left the planet, they've gone underground. That was a really prolific period, and I was on so much national television that when I would go to the set, I'd get the look, and then they talk behind my back, and then my late wife would be telling me that they all think you're nuts, and so I really know how that feels. It's not nice, but you have to remember, those people don't have your experience. The only experience they have is their day-to-day experience and what they're told by the media.
right.
So you really can't get angry with them or be upset with them. You just got to let it roll off.
Yeah. No, I don't get upset with anybody. I just play along. Yep.
Yeah, and you're still working, and I still work too, not as much, but
I mean, my
it,
screensaver on my phone is an alien.
mine's an airplane because I'm an aviator, and I think I got the X1 on it. But uh, if you go to my film studio, you'll see lots of aliens and things, and a lot of my artwork, as you know, my artwork I've been doing for Yvonne and for myself since the '90s on this subject, and it's prolific. I've done so much of it, and it's out there, and it's on my website, and people still have mixed feelings about me, and I understand it. They don't have this experience, but at the same time, they don't even go out and look at the stars at night, and they think you're weird for doing that.
Right.
So,
And I'm also a tree hugger, so
yeah, I love trees, and they enrich my life and my environment, and I feel their consciousness. I feel like my consciousness is connected with their consciousness, and you know what? It is. Let's just say it out loud. We're connected consciously to everything that lives on this planet and the Earth. So,
I
so
have,
you've said you've had more experiences. So I'd be interested in hearing about those
yeah,
because
and I
I haven't heard anything.
you
This is the first time for me with you.
oh,
Yes. Yeah.
um, and I also I guess I am a little bit different than a lot of like the Zero members because when I hear them talk about their experiences, it's frightening and it's and they hate and me, I feel it's family and I wish I could go home, kind of a thing. That's
I hear that all the time,
yeah,
and I don't hear it from zero members. Maybe a small percent of them. It's mostly all fear based. That's how we've been raised. That's how we've been indoctrinated by our culture is to fear the unknown. And
well, I
you
mean,
don't if you don't know what it is, how can you be afraid of it? That's why it's called the unknown. And when you get familiar with it, it's no longer unknown.
but if they're having experiences of um, things going up their nose or getting anal probed or whatever, then I guess that would be frightening. I mean, to me, I'm more
Sure.
like, well, if you need to do some studying and you need to figure something out while you're in there, can you fix this and can you fix that?
Yeah, and they sometimes do. They have limits, but I understand those limits. You know, when you were a little kid and you were sent to the doctor and they stuck needles in your arms and they did all kinds of stuff that was really uncomfortable and really really terrifying.
Yeah,
But the intention behind it was to benefit you.
right. Same as dogs are to go to the vet.
And people that are afraid aren't seeing that, and they'll say to me, "You don't understand. They forced me down on the cable, and they did this and they did that." Well, for one thing, you weren't even supposed to be awake during that. But I do know that we were talking about how some people can't be hypnotized, and they're not using drugs on us. I don't think. I think what they're using is they are putting us in a state of hypnosis, and
Right,
we come out of it and we look around. It's like they tell you to go back to sleep, everything's fine, they put their hand on your head and you go out again. um, so yeah, that would be shocking and terrifying to wake up out of a sound sleep and find yourself in a strange room and stuff. But as you stick with it and you learn more about it and it opens itself up to you more, you hopefully um, will understand that it's has your best intentions and it really cares about you. Otherwise, you'd be food or dead or an experiment in a bottle. I mean, none of that's happened. So
right, right. I
a
mean,
lot of people, Terry, are talking this the way you're talking right now. So as you started to tell me, I'm just like, oh yeah, here we go. It's
what
great.
I mean, as far as it being good, or
Yeah, as far as it being good, as far as it being family, as far as you feel like you have a deeper connection to it than just they casually came into your kitchen one night.
right. Well, that you know, um, I was fully awake. I had never even gone to bed yet, so that's what was interesting about that. As a it wasn't a memory that I had to, but I mean, I would have liked to have been hypnotized to, um, being that that was so long ago, to maybe have more memory through hypnosis. But
Sure.
and then the other one was more of a super real dream, um, and I haven't been under hypnosis for it, but I remember I was watching TV and the TV said I was watching the news, and it said up next is the sports, and I nodded off, and then I was waking up in a room that was a familiar room to me. It's like a white room, and
Huh.
more
Right.
concrete than anything else. It was kind of, it seemed concrete or stucco or something like that. And I've been in this room a lot of times, and it's very familiar, but comfortable room, comfortable for me. And all of a sudden, I was like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm actually here. I'm actually on the craft, and I'm awake. And I thought, okay, I've got to have some kind of evidence. So I scratched on the back of the wall because I was laying on a bed kind of a thing. And I scratched on the wall, and all of this stuff fell down into my hair, like concrete fragments or something. And I was like, okay, so I've got something in my nails, I've got something. So and then all of a sudden there was a being at the end of the bed, and I said hi, and I don't remember a mouth. I don't remember if it was telepathy or speaking or what. And I said, I know you. And he says, yes, I'm your mother, I'm your father, I'm your sister, I'm your brother, I'm your friend. I'm all in one encompassed. And I was like, wow, that makes sense, you know? And then but I kept falling asleep and trying, like, if I just had toothpicks to keep my eyes open. And then when I opened my eyes again, he was laying next to me. And I was like, are we going to have sex? And he's like, well, I mean, it's kind of like that. And I was like, okay. And then all of a sudden I remember this thing, and it wasn't a penis. It was like
Mhm.
one of those things that you would pull out and then you would point at a chalkboard. That's kind of how his unit was. It was like something that extended, and and then I was out again. And then I woke up again, and I was like, I need to walk around. I got to check this place out. So I walked into another room, and the room was like, it was kind of like a cafeteria. They had benches, like old Cafe 50s style benches, like table and benches, but they weren't, but that's the best I could kind of make it seem like.
Mhm.
And there were people sitting at them, and they had these holographic images, and they were moving things around like how you would see on these films. Um, and it was their computers that they were working on, but they were human. And I said, what are you guys doing here? And they said, well, we work here. And I'm like, you work here? And they're like, yeah, I mean, this is our job. What are you doing here? And I said, well, I'm looking for the bathroom. I want to go clean up. And they said, well, just don't use and then it was this long name, which I don't remember now. Psychocilial was something. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to use soap. And I don't remember going into the bathroom. Um, and then I walked around, and I found this other area that seemed kind of like a big, giant living room with one person that was sitting in a chair, and I guess they were controlling the ship. And then over in the corner, and it was glass all the way around, so you could just see everything. Um, and there were these two young ones that were over in the corner, and I went over and I'm like, "What are you guys doing?" And they said, "We're playing a game." And I said, "What kind of game are you playing?" And they had these big, kind of like how you would pull down a telescope on a submarine, but it wasn't. It was
Periscope,
out
yes.
this way, yeah. And so, but it had like handles on it that they were maneuvering it. And there was two different ones, and one had one and the other one had this one, and this one said, look inside here. So it was some kind of a binocular, kind of a telescope kind of a thing. Then I could see a truck with two guys in it, and they're like pointing and they're going along. And now mind you, we're way the hell up there, because when I'm looking out, I'm not seeing ground, I'm seeing
Mhm.
planet Earth. So we're way, but looking through here, I could see this truck. And I'm like, well, what is that? And they said, it's a laser. And they said, so basically, it's like how you guys do with cats, cat and mouse kind of a thing. The laser is a holographic image of a spaceship. And he goes, now watch. And so he's moving it, and so I'm watching on this, and I can see through this the laser, and he's over here doing this, and they're in their truck, and they're like super excited, and they're chasing this UFO. And he goes, okay, now watch. And he does this, so it goes, whoo, and it's gone. And I'm like, oh my God, that's hysterical. I'm like, that is hysterical. And he goes, yeah, we never really get that close to the planet. People are crazy and violent there. He said, but
You think?
and he said, but it's fun. And I said, oh, well, that's fun. So I walked back and I went back over to where the cafe was. And I said, I can't wait to tell Roger Lear and Daryl Sims about this. And they said, well, that's funny because nobody really has any clue on what is going on. Your groups fascinate us, but it's you're missing all the whole point. And they said, and they seem like nice guys, but it's not going to do anything. It's not going to do any good. And I'm like, okay. And then I heard chirping, and I'm like, birds chirping. It must be morning. And I started, and then next thing you know, I'm coming conscious into my bedroom, and I'm hearing chirping birds. And I look over the TV, and the TV says, "Up next, sports."
Wow.
And I was like, "Wait, how did I have this? What the? This is." And I, at that point, would swear to you that that was real. There was no, it was real. I got on the phone, called my friend that we had looked through that book before. I called my friend to tell her, what had happened. And she's like, Teri. And I'm like, yeah. Oh my God, I just had this amazing. She goes, Teri, what are you speaking? And I said, I just had this amazing dream. And she's like, Teri, I can't understand you. What language are you speaking? And I'm like, Victoria, what? I'm speaking English. And she goes, Teri, are you speaking tongues? What is it that you're speaking? And I'm like, and I sat for a second. I took a deep breath and I'm like, what is going on? And I'm like, Victoria? She goes, yeah, there you are. What were you speaking? And I'm like, English? And she goes, no, that wasn't English. I don't know what you were speaking. And I'm like, so then I told her the whole story. She goes, you got to go in the bathroom, go look in your hair. I went in the bathroom. I had little pieces of white specks in my hair, but I had bed lines all over my face like I'd been sleeping for, 20 hours, just deep bed lines when I'd only been technically asleep for less than a second because they just repeated the same thing that when I fell asleep. And then she goes, and she told me to go downstairs for something. I can't remember what it was. And I'm like, no, they're down there. They're still down there. And for that brief second, I wasn't afraid of them, but I was afraid for confirmation, I think,
Hmm.
so that this really wasn't a dream and that this is reality. And then that was basically that experience.
Well, you described some things you probably
Oh, I
weren't
forgot one thing.
aware of. So,
I forgot one thing. So
okay.
next morning, when I got up, told a friend of mine who he thinks it's fascinating and that I'm silly and whatever. But he
Yeah.
worked in aerospace, and so did my father. My father worked for JPL, and my biological mom worked in aerospace. Too many people in aerospace around me. But he said, "How do you know that word?" And I go, "Well, that's what they told me not to clean with." He says that is a very toxic, heavy cleaner that they use on spacecrafts and airplanes and stuff. So it actually exists, whatever the word was that I told him at
Hmm.
that time. This is many years ago. I don't remember what it was, and I didn't write it down. But um, and he was like, "That's weird that you would come up with that word." And but so he knew what it was, but he was like, "Yeah, you wouldn't want to clean yourself with that."
Well, interestingly enough, that people have these experiences, not always, but will often have family and friend connections to aerospace and the military, especially the Air Force and space sciences. And I know that it was definitely in my family. One of the things you talked about were the people, humans, sitting at on stools in front of these machines, which were like computers that were projecting holographic imagery. Um, this is something that I experienced, and it came out under hypnosis. Although I did remember it consciously too, but more came out when Yvonne put me under hypnosis. And but then more recently, reading Susie Henson's book, The Dual Soul Connection, um, it was there too. It really kind of grabbed me because I hadn't really ever heard anybody else talk about it before. And then you brought it up just now. And the fact that they would have people, humans that were taken in the night, or not taken, but went with them during the night, and they would have these they would sit at these machines and they would move the holograms, and it was kind of a job. It was something that they were doing and learning. So I found that very fascinating. Also, your description of the, for lack of a better term, the bridge area where the ship is controlled from, and the glass, and how we could see all the way around. That's really well in keeping with what I've heard many times. I would imagine that you probably aren't aware of Susie Henson's work, or some of the other people that have talked about these things.
No.
I think, since you're not able to be hypnotized, there's another way to get memories back. And I know people, the skeptics and stuff, will be turning their nose up at me as I say this. But when I read Susie Henson's book recently, um, and it was Bob Solis that and and his wife that highly recommended I read it, because they listened to me at length about my experience, and they kept looking at each other, said, "You need to read her book." So I did. And to make a long story short, as I was reading it, the things that I was suppressing, I remembered them, but I suppressed it in my narrative about my experience. There were things that I thought were a little too far out there, and I didn't think anyone would believe me. The rest of my story, if I told these things, and there they were in the book. And when I was reading her description of what was going on with her when she was a child, it just opened up a floodgate. I became emotionally kind of uh, distraught. The emotions were so strong because these memories were just rushing back at me because her book triggered it.
Yeah, I have such a vivid imagination, or like if somebody describes something to me, I could see the whole thing.
Hmm.
So what I would
Me
be
too.
worried about for me would be that I'm reading that and then I'm seeing it and making it my own memory. You know what I mean?
I think you know the difference. I know I do, because it it was more than that. What she was describing, there was many things. Um, all of a sudden, I was right there. It was like I wasn't even reading the book. It was unbelievable. It was shocking, and I remember having to put the book down and go outside and just have a cry and just let it all happen. I don't think that comes. No
Right.
one's imagination is so powerful that it can. I don't think. I could be wrong. Could drive you to that. This was more a remembered feeling than an imagined feeling. Something that it's like, it's like when you um, think about someone you really loved, animal or human, that died in your arms. If you go back to that, it just gets you every time
Yeah.
because you had that experience. And so that's what I'm relating it to. So, when you're reading a book like Susie's, it can trigger those memories. And it could be that you're the one holding them back because they're very emotional and very powerful, and you got a life to live. You got a great job. You work in the entertainment industry. I know what that's like. I did that myself. I'm still doing it. And you feel like, what's going to happen if I open up myself too far to this stuff? Is it going to affect me to such a level that I can't function anymore?
I
But I
guess
think you
I don't really think about that or worry about that. I mean, I would love to, I don't know, open the door and hey,
well, that's good.
one
Well, you're
possible
not
right
you're
there.
not a normie. You're not a normie. That's my new term ever since I've been watching uh Wednesday.
I
So,
I have a friend of mine who's a ghost hunter, and she's got all kinds of major equipment and stuff, and she was helping me with I.S.E.E.U. But I knew her right out of high school, and we did a lot of modeling together. And one time we were driving to a set, and we saw a spacecraft, and we were like trying to find it. And so as we got to our turnoff, because we were trying to keep an eye on it, as we got to our turnoff, we got down. We asked everybody else, "Did you guys see that? Did you guys see that?" And I mean, it was like there. Nobody saw it. And we're like,
nobody saw it.
so weird.
No.
So another time we were in my car and we saw one and we started chasing it. Next thing we know, there's a knock on my window and it's a cop and he's like, "Ladies, you can't sleep here." And she said that um, she was frozen. Now, this is years later she tells me this because I had forgotten completely about this. And when she told me, because I ran into her at a UPARS meeting, she just walked in the door and I'm like, oh my God, I hadn't seen her in many, many, many years. And she said, because I said, I have 18 white spots on my brain, but they don't know what it is. And she says, "Well, that's just because your mind's been erased so many times." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." She goes, "No, will you remember that time?" And then she started telling me, she's like, "And then the cop knocked on the door and we had all that missing time. And it was an hour later and we don't even know how we even stopped because last thing we remembered was we were chasing that UFO in our car." And I was like, I do kind of remember that. I remember chasing or driving, and trying to, and then I remember the cops saying we can't sleep here. But I don't think in my mind I put it together as, you know, it
Yeah.
right then. So, um, but yeah, she says you have a lot of missing time, and she was there during one of them.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you can see something um, that vivid in the sky, and you can't get people to even look at it. It's almost like they won't. It's like something turns them off. But you have to remember too that for the most part, uh, a huge percentage of the population, it never looks up. Makes me think of that movie. It doesn't. It doesn't notice an airliner or a Cessna going over that you see. It doesn't notice the clouds. It doesn't notice the stars at night. They're not transfixed at all on the sky. And so generally, I mean, that night I saw that huge triangle fly over my house here when I was on the phone with Whitley talking to him about my movie and what the ending was going to be. That moment became the ending. It was exasperating to see this huge thing, and it was so silent, and it was like wow, and I knew that flying over Port Wayne Amy like that, there had to be other people that saw it, but that's not necessarily true. I may have been the only one who noticed it because you'd have to be looking up.
Yeah, I mean, I was a teenager. I was in my backyard. I was laying out in the sun, and I didn't hear anything, but I felt kind of a breeze, and it got a little bit bigger. And I looked up, and there was this kind of terrifying thing that, which kind of looked like those planes that are super long. They're military, and they got two helicopters. I mean, blades on
A
top.
Chinook. It's called a Chinook,
So that
a
was
troop carrier.
over top of me, but no noise, and those are loud. So
Yeah, they're very loud.
underneath it had this circle and it was red and it opened kind of like how you would open a vegetable steamer, one of those metal vegetable steamers that kind of like,
Hmm.
you know, and it opened and I ran. I
I think I would have run too. I
don't know.
think
I mean, like, did anybody else see that? But there was no noise and nobody saw it. I mean,
well, even when there is a noise, they just don't tend to look up. I always have to point out stuff to people, and
right.
because I'm very conscious. Being into aviation like I am, and a pilot and everything, I'm always everything that flies over. I notice it, I hear it, and you have to point it out and say, "Look at that B-25 that just took off out of Camarillo." Oh, but they'll tell you they've never seen anything before. And you'll have people that are amateur astronomers that say, I'm looking through my telescope all the time, and I've been out in the dark sky. I've never seen anything
Well,
because they're looking through a little eyepiece the whole time. Meanwhile, there's probably a big craft sitting there with a window, and
right,
they're
right,
going
right.
like this at them. There's a cartoon in there somewhere.
Another a reoccurring dream that I have, and it's kind of, and that's scary,
Hmm.
is that I will get into an elevator and there may or may not be other people in the elevator. And all of a sudden, in my dream, the elevator starts to go backwards. And I'm like, oh my God, this is happening again for real. This isn't my dream. This is actually reality, but it's another dream. But in my dream, I'm thinking that. And it starts to like spin and move like different ways. And then one of my dreams, I was like, this is how I'm being transported. It is some kind of a pod or something that I don't know. I mean, because it kind of changes. And sometimes it'll go sideways and then it'll start to do something. And it is so terrifying to me in a way because I am out of control. I don't have any control. And so when Luxor in Vegas built that elevator that goes sideways, I don't know if you've ever been on it.
No,
I,
no, I
I
tend
wouldn't
to stay away from elevators.
I wouldn't go on it.
The stairs are fine.
Yeah, I wouldn't go on it just because it didn't go straight up and down. It
Right.
goes at an angle.
Yeah. And now that I've seen, what is it, Final Destination, I don't think I'll ever get in an elevator again.
Oh, is that the new one? I've seen the first two, but I haven't seen the newest one.
No, no, I'm watching the old ones. So they're doing new ones. Wow. They're really well done. The thing about dreams is, and people are so quick, and I see this in the comments on our channel from time to time, not very often, but people say, Steve, a dream is just a dream. And so I say, okay, tell me what a dream is. And we also know if any of these people would bother to do a little bit of investigation before they open up their big yaps, they would understand that there are people who have been traumatized in terrible ways, which I'm not going to go into violently, sexually, but I'm not going to go into details. And your mind will protect itself from those memories, and it will bury that stuff in your subconscious. Except one small problem: when you sleep at night, sometimes they leak out into your dreams, and you relive these things. And so, what you're reliving was very real. Sure, it came out in a dream, but it's not just a dream. There's something more going on there. And then other times, I mean, you go to sleep, your eyes open up, you're in a completely different reality. And I mean, the way you describe it is exactly how it is. You can feel the surfaces of everything, the walls, the tables, the floor. You can breathe the air, you can smell, you can feel your body. It's real. So there's something else going on there,
Yeah.
don't you think?
Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And it's whatever your subconscious is thinking. It might twist it into something a little different than an experience, um,
Yeah.
and it might take a few different things and kind of put them together. So something is two of your subconscious thoughts, and then it kind of it morphs. But there's something that's behind it because a lot of times when I have any kind of dreams, I'll sit there and think, what was I thinking about? Because like last night, I had a dream about I was in some place and it was an apartment and I didn't, and it was my new place and why I was in the apartment, I don't know, but and there was carpet and that my cat peed on the carpet and destroyed this really nice carpet. Well, in reality, yesterday, my cat peed in the downstairs plant in a pot, got the dirt
Much
all over,
better.
and my boyfriend was like, "Ah, the cat peed in the pot," you know. So that's where that came from, you know.
Right.
So everything comes from something, even though it's a little different, but it comes from something.
It can. I've been one of those people that all my life, I've been into sci-fi and horror films, and of course that ended up being my career is making films and doing visual effects and creatures and even Leonard Nimoy's ears. I mean, and despite all that involvement in watching all those films and being involved in those films, I really never dream about it ever. I mean, I can go to bed right after seeing one hell of a horror film, and eh, Nothing comes out. Nothing. My dreams aren't affected. But that's just me. That doesn't mean that that works that way for everyone. And I understand that. But I don't get affected that way.
Yeah, I've got
And
monsters all over my house. I have a
that's good. That's a good thing. I like that.
I have a clown and a mummy that's behind my bar. I've got Jason, Freddy Krueger, and Michael Myers downstairs. You know, they're all life size things. In my
Oh,
room, I've got
you're a collector on top of everything else.
in my bedroom, I've got a hanging vampire. I got a coffin and the Grim Reaper. And people are like, "Don't
Right.
you have nightmares about that?" And I'm like, "The Grim Reaper's already here. I don't have to worry about it." You know.
No, I've always loved the Grim Reaper. He's one of my favorites. I think Monty Python did a great job with John Cleese as the Grim Reaper. That was a great costume.
Bring out your dead. Was that one or?
No, no, no. It was the salmon moose in the meaning of life.
Oh,
It was built up so that Cleese was actually in the rib cage, but the rest he was really tall and he had the really skeletal hand and everything. Oh yeah, it's when they were all eating and then they all ate the salmon moose and they all died and death shows up.
I love
And yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm not bothered by that stuff at all. In fact, right next to my bed is and I'll well probably cut in an image of it or maybe even video is a sculpture I did back in the '90s of one of the grays I kept seeing all the time. And she's very pleasantly has her head to one side like this, and in her hand she's holding a sphere that's changing colors. Because I had seen that before. At that time, I thought those were lights. I later found out that they were orbs, they were souls, they were spirit.
hmm,
Yeah.
energy.
Again, I think you'd find Susie Henson's book very interesting, and only because I have a feeling if you read that book, you're going to relate to it on a level that will surprise you.
We have a lot of
It
spheres that were occasionally caught on one of my cameras downstairs that kind of float around. Um,
Yeah, and there's a difference between the ones that are dust close to the lens and the lens can't focus on it and they're spherical because they move entirely different. And I've looked at a lot of these videos, and some of them is because they have the heater on or the environmental controls on so that they will kick on during the night and it will cause a bunch of dust and the camera will pick up some movement and on goes the light and it will amplify this dust and it'll be out of focus and it'll look but they flow all one way and they kind of dance around like that.
yeah,
The ones you're talking about have they have a mission. They come in, they stop, they move around, they glow a certain color, and they there's something driving them behind them, and so there is a big difference. They're
I
not
have
old.
a friend of mine who has a clothing company in the valley, and he's caught so many orbs on camera, and I'm like, it's probably fragments of material that's floating around and getting picked up by the light. And he says, well, first of all, as you know, because you've been to the warehouse, there are no windows. Second of all, it's at night. And he's like, and third of all, I want you to watch this. And I watched this video, and there's like one that's doing this, and you see it, and then it does this, and it comes up to the camera, and then it does this, and then it goes, and then there was another one I see, and it goes like this, and it splits into two, goes around the table, and then comes back together again. And
How old is the building?
uh, I mean, it's in Sunland, Tahunga.
Okay.
I don't know, but he also had a camera outside, and you see just massive orbs that were going down this one the driveway, like they were just like a ton of them were leaving. Um, so he's like, yeah, I think that we've got some kind of a lot of spirits in here. So
Are you familiar with the history of Tahunga and as related to this subject matter?
no,
Yeah, it has a huge history. In fact, there was a book, a very good book written I read back, I think in the '70s. Maybe it was the '80s, but it was the Tahunga contacts. I think I can't remember the name, but if you look it up, you can find it. There were so many paranormal and UFO sightings in that area
oh,
that they did wrote a whole book about it. So
I have
I
to
find
see
that
if
really interesting. You
uh,
keep doing that to me. You keep bringing up things I know you're not familiar with, but you've experienced it or heard someone tell you about, and then I know the history. So it's kind of cool.
well, the funny thing about that is like a lot of people in the communities will mention different people's names. And I'm not somebody who's done a lot of research on the subject. I just kind of fell into it. I'm interested in it. I've had some interesting experiences, and I took on getting the group together again, and having the meetings, places that people could go, because everybody kept saying, "Oh, when are there going to be in-person meetings and stuff?" And just having something so that people can get together, they can share, they can talk. But I haven't done a lot of research, so a lot of these, the only people that I really know their names was um, Daryl Sims and Roger Lear, Lloyd Pye, and I know Stephen Bassett because of Yvonne's group.
Right.
And I didn't know Earl until I met him when he came to speak. So I don't. Some of the people I'd seen at different meetings. The one guy who wrote a book about all of the Bigfoot in the at the parks.
Hmm.
I don't remember his name, but anyways, so yeah, I don't do a lot of research, so I don't know a lot of names, but I am fascinated. But um, there's just so much stuff that's out there that is baloney. Um,
Yeah, there is. That the YouTube's full of it,
and then I also find
literally.
on some of these meetings and stuff, and I'll see people that come and they're talking about things, and I mean, I hate to say, but sometimes I think that they've had other kind of trauma, and that they're using this as a means to be accepted and get in with a group or
I
something.
know exactly what you're saying, and it's your intuition, your heart that tells you this. It screams at you, and you kind of try to say, "Well, I don't really know. I mean, I'm being too hard on this person," but it keeps coming at you, and um, you need to listen to that heart. You need to listen to that intuition.
Yeah, because I'm thinking that some of these experiences that they're talking about is actually a relative of yours. It's not extraterrestrial. It's not supernatural, or they're just making up things to be in a group. I see.
Yeah, I know it's sad, and but what's really something is that your intuitiveness tells you this, and it really speaks to you, and it speaks to me, um, and it also works in life in other ways. When you meet new people, um, you'll get a feeling that I do not want to engage with this person. I do not want to get in close to this person. There's something not right about them, and um, I used to go through this a lot during the '90s with my late wife, and she used to laugh and say, because you say that, oh, you don't have any intuition, you don't know that this person's perfect. I say, no, we cannot work with this person or we're going to get burned. And every time she would say, we need the money, we need to get this job, and we're talking about studio work and working with clients to build things, models for films and other purposes. And every time I felt like I should not get involved with this person, and she insisted, and I did anyway, it went real bad. And I have since really decided to really, really take that intuition very seriously, and I think you should too. I mean, it's real, and it's something I think we have because of our experience.
And then also in the community, you see a lot of times everybody that gets um, interviewed on news channels or whatever, it's always portrayed as, well, me and my cousin, we're, just very um, not articulate, not very bright, not respectful, very silly. They always want to kind of portray anybody who's had any experiences as crazy and illiterate.
Well, that's why I took exception to one of the serial members had Yvonne sent out the notice about the support group, and that person took advantage of that so that they could send something to everybody on the list. You can send to all, and it was a video that was on YouTube. That was this woman who came forward. to say she was a victim of Epstein, and also that they were involved in trafficking with the Greys and all this other stuff. And I just, I was the only person that said anything about it.
I must not have seen it.
Oh no, it was just, oh come on. I went over and looked at it for 2 seconds and just immediately turned it off. It was negative, it was dark, and I don't know, maybe I don't know the woman, but to me it seemed like my gut was telling me this person's just trying to make up stuff to get attention. So, and that has no business being in the group emails with the MUFON group. It's supposed to be just about our experiences and sharing in that, and not. I mean, that stuff's just, I don't know. It's awful, and YouTube has so much of it,
Yeah.
you know. And it takes away from the people who've had legitimate experiences, and yeah,
I just want them to come land on the White House lawn and say, hey, I'd be the one that in Independence Day that would be up there with a cardboard sign saying, we're here, or hello, welcome, and then they shoot her.
and our government would love you to think that that's exactly what would happen, what happened in Independence Day. But what they can't take is that's not how it is at all. It's more like what it is in Close Encounters of a Third Kind, the movie that shouldn't have been successful, but was, because it was one of the few films made where they portrayed our visitor friends as being who they really are. And there's a reason for that, but I won't talk about it on camera. Person to person, we can talk about it. But because I promised certain things. But um, yeah, it's such a hard subject matter. It's fine if you're talking to people who pull you aside and say, "Terry, I saw you on that show," and right away you think, "Oh boy, here we go." This happened to me several times on sets. They pull me aside, away from everyone else, and say, "I got to tell you about what I saw," and that always helps
Oh
because
yeah, I get a few of my union fellow members that have come to the I.C.E.U. meetings, and and then there's a few of them that are so conspiracy theory out there.
yeah,
With all these, because there's so many different things about like the about Siri and about oh gosh, I'm going blank on the name, but I mean it's just so um, it's so out there that I mean, and then my friends will laugh and they go, "It was out there for you," because
yeah.
you're out there, and I'm like, yeah, like I was trying to have a conversation with somebody, and all of the things that they were talking about and believed in, I was like, but it's everything that is out there on the internet, and
It is.
it's
It is. Critical thinking is a very important thing to have, to think for yourself, to research for yourself. If you have question about a subject matter, and I do this all the time with people who I know are very skeptical still about UFOs, despite of all the hard evidence, they'll say, "Where's the hard evidence? You have to research it. You have to look into it. It's there." I don't have time for that. Well, then don't make a judgment on it. Just say
I,
you don't know.
I'm
Don't tell me they don't exist because so and so says so on some news program you saw.
well.
That's not critical
First of
thinking.
all, how could you not believe? Because the amount of planets that are out there that could sustain life is more than the amount of grains of sand that we have.
Well, first they'd have to understand that. If you talk to most people on the street and in casual life and you bring up the James Webb telescope, you get this look. What?
Right.
James Webb, it went up a couple of years ago, a telescope that's out there changing how we see physics and science. I haven't heard of that.
Really? Wow.
The one that I constantly harp on is having a conversation with a number of people at a table. This woman is 68 years old, heard me say that our sun is a star. She didn't know that. It completely. She thanked me for it. It opened up her mind because the first thing she said to me, she says, "Well, then the other stars I see at night are suns too," and you could tell where it was going to. Oh my God, that means there could be other life out there. Exactly. But see, most people don't know that because they don't think about it. They may have been taught that in school at one time. I don't think they teach it now. Um, but they don't remember it because it wasn't important or interesting to them.
But I also have even though I've had these experiences, I also have my logical, skeptical side that,
We all do.
that comes in and says, well, yes, I think at one point in time, back in the Anunnaki days, that they came, they mined, they got what they needed, they created, but why would they want to come back here? And so unless it's like the 12th planet and comes back around and they're close enough and they can, come back and visit, why would they want to come back? Or why would they even care about this planet? So I've got that kind of thought in the back, that goes on. Um, but at the same time, there's too much other stuff going on. So I don't know. I mean, it's hard to explain. I do believe that they have been here several times, and created, with Mesopotamian Sumerian writings. But whether or not they're close enough, recently in our in close enough here to be taking people, I don't know. Or is it a fold in in the universe, in time or space, that allows them to just, so they're not actually taking you to a mothership, they're taking you to a building, because it's just like you're walking through a door into something else. The same with ghosts and, spirits, and, I don't know. It just gets, sometimes it just gets a little deep.
Oh, it does, but it actually is incredibly simple. And then if we had another hour, we could go into that. Maybe that's another show, but we can talk later. And there are people you should know about. And the thing about these things is they're not talked about in Yvonne's group much at all, and in general in the community. But in our community on Breaking the Silence, we have a lot of people who all know they have the same information about the why. Why are they doing this? Why are they here? How are we part of this? And we're talking about, there's an ongoing narrative about it. So before we close, I wanted to ask you about I.S.E.E.U. and I'm sure you would like to share with the audience about the fact that you're starting up again. You're going to have Stephen Bassett very soon and other guests down the road. Can you
Yes,
tell us about that?
September 13th.
Hmm.
Maybe Stephen. We have the meeting usually starts at 7 p.m.
Hmm.
Most of the time, it's the last Saturday of every month. Um, Being that it's basically my pocket, so
Yeah, it's all our pockets. None of us make any money from this.
and so
That's not why we do it.
they've been very generous to give us their time and come and speak for free. And then, I do charge at the door, and that just basically barely covers what it costs to rent the place that we meet at.
Of course.
It's in Valley Village, Studio City, Valley Village. It's, Laurel Canyon and, Riverside, is where we meet. And, yeah, so I'm getting ready to try to line up some more people, for the rest of the year. I do have one of the guys from the, Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. Am I saying that
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
That's going to come speak also, besides Stephen, then for, October.
Hmm.
November, we might do something with everybody just coming and sharing their experiences, because a lot of people have been wanting to do that again, because we had a good time with that. Um,
That would be great.
that's, trying to just get it, and I need to get somebody who is, experienced on running a camera and setting up a Zoom type of a thing for the meeting, so that people in other states will be able to, donate money to come in, and help with that. I did have my ghost hunter, but now she's moved out of the state and took her cameras and everything with her. So
Oh, wow. Well, you're in the right place for that. You'll find someone
yeah,
around. Well, it's really nice because basically you're giving people interested and who have these experiences some place to go and be social and talk and be among themselves. And that's always a really helpful thing, because it's very difficult having this in your life, because of how it can affect your life by talking about it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
when you're among other people who have the same interest and the same experience, it really uh, helps you sleep better at night, I think, even though things still go bump in the night. They certainly do here on a regular basis. So, um,
There used to
Terry,
be a list. There used
what's
to be,
that?
there used to be a list that
Right.
of all the things that experiencers, contactees, or abductees, like the how do you feel about clowns? How do you feel about owls? There used to be a big list, and also like a questionnaire. I'm trying to put together again something like that to see how many people have the same, whether it is you Novocaine doesn't affect you whatsoever, or all the different things, and to see. So I don't know if you know anybody that has some kind of list like that. I'm trying to.
No, I really don't, but I'm sure someone has done that. I mean, Barbara Lamb, Kathleen Martin, any number of those people who have worked with cases for a very long period of time in their lives probably does have that list. I mean, I can think of a lot of them offhand myself. So
Yeah,
owls follow me all over the place, and I don't like clowns, and uh, they and there's lots of stuff you mentioned
yeah.
about that.
Well,
We all seem to have the smells, the mold smell, which I'm smelling all the time. I don't know where it's coming from. I'll be out walking and I smell it. The list goes on, but you just got to put that list together.
yeah. So that's another thing that I'm getting ready to start doing, and having people add to the list and share, and because then it's interesting for somebody else who's either new or not new to it, to look at that list and go, oh yeah, I've got that, I've got that, I've got that, I've got that, and feel that they're not alone. Also,
Right.
like it's
Sure.
not going crazy.
Yeah. Terry, thank you so much for being on Breaking the Silence and conversation. It was great to finally meet you and hear about your experiences. And I feel like I know you because we both worked in the same business for so long. Um, I'm sure we have a lot of other experiences we could share besides this one when it comes to the studios, but we'll save that for another time.
And I hope that you're going to come and do I.S.E.E.U. and do one of your podcast things, maybe live with on I.S.E.E.U. or come talk or
Yeah, or we could run some of the films too, because I don't know, you probably haven't seen the newer films that I've done, but they're we take an experiencer and we professionally shoot it on cinematic cameras and sound, and they talk directly to camera about their experience, and I bring the experience to life using my visual effects skills.
oh cool,
And so we could run a couple of those, or
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Okay, well we will talk soon.
Okay. Well, thanks so much.
All right, thank you. Have a great day.